Hey folks, Rob here, bringing another unboxing. This time we're going to be doing the twofer. It's going to be Best of Friends 1 and 2. Now, this is all from the Swedish Friendly Fire ASL tournament. So it's a total of 24 scenarios between the two packs. And the second one comes with a board. So let's break it down and see what kind of scenarios we get. All right, so first up, we're going to be looking at Best of Friends number 1. So we have 12 scenarios. Now, again, I'm going to be blocking off the orders of battle so that you don't get free scenario plays. By all means, go and support the industry by buying this kind of stuff. So these are all designed by the Swedish Friendly Fire tournament guys. You can see list names up top. A lot of play testing has been going on, so that's always good to see. And then, of course, we have our MMP friends that doing some proofreading as well as layout, and Nicholas Scooby for his nice cover art, which I think he did the second one as well. All right, so the first scenario we're going to be looking at is Marco Polo Bridge. Now, this is going to be the foundation of a hassle that's coming out, as well for starter kits. So you're going to have an ASL and a starter kit, historical modules, all based around this Marco Polo Bridge. Uh, Early war China versus Japanese. So in this case, we have Chinese defenders with about 20 or so squads facing off against looks like 11 Japanese squads. The Chinese are the first line 337s primarily, although there's other squad types as well, and they do have a half track. So um, looks like the Japanese start off with a couple of prisoners as well. That's interesting. All right, BOF number 2, two boards, one T and 4. Again, T should be the starter kit boards, which I don't have access to, so I want to use them on Vassal. This one's in Poland, September 39, and you can just imagine it's got some Poles facing off against some Germans. Now, interestingly, they have a lot of elite Polish and first line, so you're looking at about a dozen or so Polish squads, and they all have assault fire capability, which is quite cool because the Germans at this time do not. Not on their squads, anyways. They only have the spray fire, so it's kind of cool. Again, a mixture of vehicles, some defensive, minimal, and both sides do have armor. Abbeville Bridgehead, France, May 40. Early war again, 16 and 4 of the boards. Looks like 3 overlays. Um, this one's about 7 turns long, which is probably on the longer side for a tournament scenario, but I do not know the actual amount of time it took to play. I assume it's the 3 to 5 hour range, but again, I really don't know. Interestingly, for the Germans who are on the defensive, that because the French enter from off board, you're allowed bore sighting. However, the Germans are not allowed to use that for a deliberate immobilization attempt against the French tanks. So that's interesting SSR. I wonder why they implemented that one. It's about controlling buildings for victory conditions, so I'm not sure what disabling a tank would hinder that or not. So I'm not sure. Interesting though. We have about shadowy sides. Your typical 10 to 12 squads aside. This one's 7.5 turns, so it's again on the longer side. And the Russians win a game in by controlling 9 or more building rubble hexes, and or by eliminating 3 more AFVs than the Germans eliminate. So both sides have AFVs. The Germans have 4, the Russians have 2, and they're the big honking. Is that a KV2? The 152 armed tank. So yeah, I think it's a KV2. In any case, it's a big ass tank for 2. Um, yeah, you can see right there the big monster tank. Snare number 5, most of board 32, 6.5 turns, and the VP conditions, of which the Germans need 8, consist of 1 VP for each onboard mobile AFV, German AFV, each Russian non-crew squad equivalent AFV eliminated or captured, and each rubble hex building bridge currently under German control. Now, this is a dozen Germans facing off against just under 10 Russians, although both sides do have armor and the Russians do have fortifications, including a HIP 4-1 squad. We have more cavalry action with number 6 Cavalry Brigade model. This is July 42. Uses most of 2 boards, 5.5 turns, and as you can imagine, it does have German 548s on horses, as well as 2 armored units that are going to be tagging along for the fun. Now, the Germans win a game end if there is 2 unbroken Russian squad equivalents, or I should say less than 2 unbroken Russian squad equivalents within 1 hex of the rallying point. Now, the concern for the Germans, of course, is the Russian player secretly designates it, so you're never going to know until game end what is the rallying point. You can maybe infer from where the Russian keeps his units around, but yeah, it's unknown for the German perspective what that hex is. Fields of Black Gold, September 42. Germans win immediately upon controlling all level 3 hexes and the 18 P7 hill. Another dozen squads aside. Russians have guns, fortifications, and tanks. Germans have some tanks, about a half a dozen. That's pretty cool. Helping out with their 468 SS guys. SS Division Vikings. So these are the Axis partners SS division. Here we have Sting of the Italian Hornet, and we have 2 half boards butted up, 4 overlays. That's quite a lot for a small little area. This is in Sicily, July 43, and it has Canadians on the attack against some Italians. So this took place 2 days after the Pacino landings, when the Canadians were primarily unobstructed in their landings. There wasn't any real defensive fortifications to give them any kind of effort. It was a pretty uneventful day on the 10th. However, as I move further inland, the coastal batteries start getting organized, and the Italians start putting up a defense. So this takes place, as I said, 2 days after the Sicily landings. We have a mixture of OBA, tanks, fortifications. We got minefields and wire and foxholes for the Italians, and once more, about a dozen squads aside, all trying to make some way. Pursuing Frank. Now, this is number 9, Poland 44. So the Germans are going to be on the defensive. Russians are coming in on the assault. Looks like they have motorcycle troops coming on as well. And yeah, again, we're looking about 10, 11 squads aside. The Germans do have a couple of infantry guns to help them fend off against the Russian armor half tracks as well as motorcycle guys. So it's going to be a fast moving one. I could quickly see the Germans being flanked or surrounded because there's so much speed on the Russian side. Number 10, To Have and to Hold, France, September 44. So we have German defenders versus the Americans. This is really small squad sizes. Now you're looking at about, what, 10 for the Germans. The Americans only have 6. And they're half squads that come on in carriers. So it's an interesting little scenario. Not a lot of depth for actions, just because with 6 half squads on the American side, it's going to be difficult to absorb any losses that the Germans inflict on you. I assume it's well balanced. I've never played this one, but 6 American half squads versus 10 or 11 Germans. Well, most of them are second line or conscripts, so I guess it's not too bad. But still, it would be interesting. Second last one, we have Second Thoughts, which uses most of, well, half of board 49 with 2 overlays. Looks like a railway one as well. Again, small units, less than 10 aside. So this is going to be another one that is, you got to be careful about losing too much. Now, there are 3 armor for the Americans. The Germans only have a captured M8 HMC. And, oh, interesting. Game turns 1 and 2. American ELR is 0. Wow. Ground snow is in effect. Um, all American personnel are lax and considered inexperienced for purposes of CC, whereas they're German SS. Interesting. January 45. I guess this is the tail end of the Bulge thing. Nordwind. Yeah, Operation Nordwind. So Hitler's last major offensive to the west. And then lastly, for scenario pack 1, we have Forging Spetsnaz. It uses 3 half boards all butted up. Again, small numbers of squads, 15 or less, and variable mix. This is Japanese versus Russian too, so in August 45. Could be interesting scenario. All right, so now looking at Best of Friends number 2. Again, this one comes with a map and 12 more scenarios from the Swedish Friendly Fire tournament. We have, again, a list of scenario designers, which is pretty well the same as Best of Friends 1. A lot of proofers, again, a lot of play testers, so that's good to see that it's gone through the paces. Let's look at the board first, see what that's all about. All right, so this is board 85. Fairly um, interesting lines of sight. Again, you got lots of wood clusters, copses of woods. Then you have the town itself, even with a wooden church and a steeple. Small little, presumably Eastern Front village. So it looks like a nice little board. All right, so first up is number 13 from the scenario pack number 2. We're looking at one board, 85, the one I just showed you. And we have 6.5 turns. We have Germans versus Poles, and the Polish are actually on the offensive. September 39, so this must be one of their local counterattacks. Again, the Polish elite and first line have assault fire capability, and Baroque morale is increased by 1. So I believe the Allied miners like Poland 457s have a lower morale in the back, so it should be a 7 now and not a 6. And they're facing off against Germans who, funny enough, don't have assault fire capability, just spraying fire. Poles have to capture, eliminate 6 or more German squad equivalents, and each wooden building containing a Polish good order squad equivalent counts as 1 German squad eliminated. So it's yeah, defending a little village, eh? Nice. Can't wait to get the Allied Miners module. Cocktails for Molotov, Poland, September 39. Polish set up first. The Russians, so this is the Russian attack from the east against the Poles. It's a mix of, for the Poles, we have troops, fortifications like roadblocks, as well as some cavalry. And the Russian side has armor with some squads and a couple of trucks. Russians win a game end if any game turn at the end of any game turn if City Hall and or military headquarters each contain 2 or more armed good order Russian non-crew squad equivalents. So that means you can't abandon your vehicles to occupy a building, get that way. And the Poles have the Molotov capability. Yeah, I want to get my hands on the Allied Miners module. Forsthaus Clash. This is in Crimea, so June 42. Here we have Germans on the defensive with the Russians attacking. It looks like the Germans get air support on their side. They get a 1 Stuka. And we have about 16 squads versus 10 German squads. So it's heavily weighted in the squads for the Russians, but they're on the offensive too, so it would kind of make sense. These snares come with nice heavy cardstock. So it seems to be a little bit thicker than the normal kind, or maybe it's just feels thicker in my hands anyways. Number 16, Saluting in General. This one's 3 boards. And yeah, armor on both sides, about a dozen squads on each side. So there's going to be a lot of moving in this one. Now, board 85 is the village one that I just showed you, so that's in the center. And then you have 42 and board 5 on either side. Russian AFV have no special ammunition, so I guess no APCR for the Russians. Looks like a Lend-Lease Stewart is in the mix for the Russians as well. No Time to Bleed, 2 boards with 1 overlay. Really using a lot of board 85, so I'm glad it came with a scenario pack. This is Germans versus Russians, and the Russians are on the defensive this time, 6.5 turns. Russian AFV can retain concealment as in place guns when firing their MA. They're not subject to bog and wood road hexes, and cannot create trail breaks. So that concealment means that when they fire their guns, unless they roll a 5 or 6 on the colored die, they can retain their concealment, which is pretty cool. 658 SS with a lot of armor, including a Panther or 2 against T-34s, Su-85s, and some guns on the Russian side. As well, the Russians have 10 squads. Bitterman's Escape in Belarus, July 44. Only uses half a board 22, 5.5 turns. Nice little small scenario. Troop count is really low. There's 6 Russian squads with 2 weak armor for July 44 especially. And the Germans have 9 4.67s as well as a half track for 2. Really small unit counts. Again, not going to be a lot of flexibility. And the Germans win immediately upon exiting 3 squads or more. Not equivalents. It has to be 3 full squads off the north edge. And the half track 10-5 exits counts as 1 squad. Yeah, I'm not sure about the 6 German squads. Or Russian squads, excuse me. They do have some dummy counters you can use because the Germans enter from off board, and then the Russian armor comes on turn 1 as well from off board. So because you set up on board, the Germans are not, you'll be able to use 1, maybe 2 dummy stacks on the outside. Bite of the Basotto from Italy, July 44, half a board of 85 again, so this is probably the village part. And we have New Zealanders versus Germans. So we have Fallschirmjägers versus the 2nd New Zealand Division, working the way up the boot. Again, very small squad mix. We're looking at 7 for the Germans with 1 tank, 2 tanks, and a single foxhole. And then the New Zealanders come on with 8 squads themselves and 3 tanks. So it's again very small unit action for 5 turns. Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, East Prussia, Germany, 27 January 45. Once more, we got a dozen German squads versus about 10-ish Russian squads coming on those 2 map boards, 65 and 64. I think if I remember them correctly, I'm not very keen on those 2 map boards. One of them I think is if it's the one I'm thinking about, the terrain is just I don't know, it's not grokking me. Um, but the Russians have guns, tanks, and a couple of trucks to ferry their troops around. And the Germans are on the offensive, and they have a couple of Jagdpanzer 2s, or 5s. Jagdpanzer 5. So 88 double long, 18 frontal armor. That'll be really nice. Um, yeah. Dying for Danzig, Poland, March of 45. Once more Germans are on the defensive, Russians are on the attack, and looks to be probably about a dozen or so squads each side. Germans have guns and a couple of gun-mounted half-tracks. And the Russians got some big old 122 cannons coming on board. And a couple of flamethrower tanks too. We have capital punishment. This is Germany, 16 April 1945, just a few days before the war ends in the West. Uses the board 3A, which I believe is one of the double boards, which again I don't have those boards. We have again dozen squads. Seems to be typical for the scenario pack number 2, which again is a good, I think a good number to use. 10 or more is always preferable just because you have more flexibility in your tactics. Now the Russians for their part have 18 squads against the Germans 11 or 12. So second last one in the scenario pack is number 23, Anhalt Pandemonium, Berlin, Germany, 26 April. 23 and 21, which are the old two city boards. And we have, not surprisingly, Germans on the defensive. We have 8 German SS squads with a couple of tanks. Stugs looks like. And we have, 16 Russian squads with 4 tanks coming up against them as well. Looks like there's a burning wreck in each of the 3 hexes with drifting smoke. So wooden rubble at ground level in 3 locations too. No bridges, so I think one of these is the canal board, and looks like bridges don't exist. And then lastly, we have number 24, A War of Their Own. Uses 3 half boards with a shitload of overlays. We got 7 overlays. August 45, again, we have Japanese versus Russians. And the Japanese are actually on the offensive in August 45. Large numbers of troops. We're looking well around 14 for the Russians. Japanese have only 8. However, they're armed with about 6 tanks and a couple of guns. So should be would be an interesting one. Japanese versus Russians. You don't often get to see that kind of thing. All right, and there we have it. So we have Best of Friends 1 and number 2. Number 2 comes with the map board 85, that small little wooden village. Eastern Front, very atypical, I suppose. Yeah, Best of Friends. So we got 24 scenarios to play with 1 extra map board. Kudos to the Friendly Fire ASL tournament for producing these, and then MMP taking them on and printing them, making them all available. So I've got a couple in here I wouldn't mind trying. They're just going to have to add them to the list. But we'll hopefully get to those ones. That Canadian versus Italian one seems to be probably a good one as well. Wouldn't mind trying that one. It's always fun to play the Canadian scenarios. All right, so hope you guys enjoyed that. Get them, Best of Friends 1 and 2. MFP has them. You can also get them from other places. If you're in Canada, I highly encourage you to go to Tadanac Games in Halifax. Peter's very responsive to emails and he gets back to you quite quick. He's only been in business, I think, 2 or 3 years, but he's making a good start of it. And again, there's also Battle School in Ottawa, Chris, there as well. So if you're Canadian, go to one of those 2 sites and pick your Best of Friends 1 and 2. And we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.